Well, good morning, and thank you all for joining us for what will be an informative program on cloud storage and egress options from ORock. Today's webinar is being recorded, and the recording will be made available to all registrants right after it compiles later today. You can use the chat function to ask questions during the presentation, and we will cover those at the conclusion of the webinar. Here to present today is Steve Robinson, Chief Revenue Officer from ORock. ORock is a Cinex affiliate and is part of Synex's NCPA contract 01-97. But before we start, we have a few words from Michelle Chapin, Director of Public Sector Business Development from Cinex. Michelle?
Awesome. Thank you, Mike, and thank you guys for joining. We're thrilled to be with you. And thank you, NCPA, for the partnership. We truly appreciate it and look forward to ongoing partnership over the years. I'm just going to share just an overview with you all that kind of outlines who is Cinex. Cinex is probably the biggest company you don't know. And quite honestly, the way I look at it is, what can Cinex help you do better or procure better? So Cinex has been around. We're celebrating our 40th anniversary. So why does that matter to you? We've been here. We've been supporting the government community for over 20 years. We've been supporting our IT partners like ORock for many years, for 40 plus years. And what that gives you is that stability and that reliable source for IT technology. The other thing is we have a number of team members. Corey, one of our team members on the call today, but we have 40 plus people that are a part of what we affectionately call GovSolve. GovSolve is a team dedicated to government support. So you can see some of our support there, from a sales team to a diversity program. So those diversity partners, those 8A, Hub Zone, SDVOBs, so those reseller alliances that are so important for procurement. And a number of things, grants resource. So, should you be needing support there, we're happy to help you, and a number of other resources I won't go into, but if you do have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me or govsolve@cinex.com. So what do we offer that can help you? We actually offer vertical support in state and local public safety, healthcare, education, and obviously not relative to this contract, but federal. So 7,000 resellers. No, we're not behind me. We're not boiling the ocean for you. But the idea is we have that connection to that diverse group. And we are been doing this, like I said, for 40 years. So we understand how to do volume and scale. And we're thrilled about the NCPA contract. So it really has a wide range of technology, and working with Mike and his team, having that ability to have a one-stop shop for your procurement makes it seamless and easy. And we love working with NCPA with new technologies, which one is ORock. And with that, I'm going to stop and pass it over to Steve to talk about a great new technology. Internally with Synnex, we call ORock Rocks. So with that, I'll turn it over to Steve.
All right, thank you, Michelle. I appreciate it. And first of all, appreciate everyone's time today. Clean up the screen here. So just further introduction, Steve Robinson. I'm the Chief Revenue Officer at ORock Technologies. ORock Technologies, when you think about where we compete in the market, think of the big three clouds. So we think of Amazon, AWS, Microsoft Azure, or even Google GCP. ORock is a government grade, specifically FedRAMP compliant cloud. So we offer hosting essentially where customers and agencies can host their applications and their data. But when they do that in a very, I call it military grade secure environment. So one of the things that we pride ourselves on is the fact that we provide that level of security and perimeter. But we do more than that. We've also connected our network to each of our hotspots, let's say, in terms of where you could connect to the ORock cloud. And I'm going to go into the business value or the agency value or the higher ed value of why that matters. What's unique about that and different about that. And then you'll hear me talk about compliance and predictability, or even determinism around cloud consumption. A lot of options in the journey traveled over the last 10 to 15 years. Some agencies and higher ed are kind of dipping their toe in the water. Some of them gone, a little more aggressive in terms of moving their IT estate into the cloud. But what we know to be true in the market is that they're struggling with compliance, but also predictability. Predictability in the performance, predictability in the security, predictability in the cost. There's a lot of head scratching that goes on when that first invoice comes back, and I call it a kind of a menu of line item charges, or analogy would be like kind of like a telephone bill. I can't make sense of all the fees and the transaction fees and all this. What ORock has done is simplified that experience considerably. We've collapsed that down into a consumable model where you're only paying for what you use when you need it, and we include all the things you need to deliver that IT experience for you. Where does ORock compete? We compete in commercial industries. So you think about regulated verticals, FSI, healthcare, oil and gas. Government is where we started. We started actually in the DoD, the Department of Defense. The Army uses our cloud as an example. And then, of course, federal civilian agencies. And then what we're here to talk about, state, local, and higher education. Technology companies also use ORock, and you think about applications used in the government as another example, where they need a clear, compliant partner in terms of their hosted infrastructure that also addresses the access to that data over the network. Here's a snapshot of some of the logos in our customer set. Clearly, examples like Grove City College. I'm going to detail that use case, give it a little visualization around how they're using us and why they chose ORock, and how they're optimizing that determinism and cost, and others that we can talk about. The federal markets, and just to tap on that, it's required us to build a service experience around our cloud that's very different than what you're going to find in the market. When you're with a hyperscaler, or you're in, put another way, a large cloud, they're basically presenting the hosting environment and saying how you rationalize that for your environment and how you go deploy it and how you support it is really upon you, customer, or you may use a channel partner to go do that. ORock's approach is to kind of flip that upside down and say, listen, we realize your IT estate is unique. Everyone is a snowflake. We realize that you need that kind of trusted advisor to get there, and you need to understand the pitfalls of going to the cloud and how we solve some of those pitfalls. And we understand what at the bottom or at the end of the day, or the bottom line, what that day two support looks like, right? Once I get there and I'm live, that's kind of step one. I've got to make sure it's up, it's compliant, and that it's running. And then when I call, somebody to help me, I'm going to get a live voice. And where I'm tapping into the federal markets as a FedRAMP. So FedRAMP is the federal program. If you want to run your application or data in the cloud, that requires that stature, that compliance status that we have requires us to have a few things. One, our domestic resources, and in our case, they're located in Northern Virginia in terms of our support desk, or our network operations center, and our security operations center underneath that. Two, these are screened and background checked analysts that sit on our help desk. And three, you have to get to a live voice first time, every time. We don't over automate. We can automate. We've got self-service built in our customer experience portal and things of that nature, but you're going to get to a live person. We have to do that. It's part of our DNA in serving customers like the Army. And all of those benefits, those assets and experience that we bring to bear in an engagement happens in the SLED markets or commercial or any market that we serve. It's a very important point. So I'm not going to spend too much time on this slide. If we peel the onion back a little deeper, what specific cloud offerings does ORock have available to the market. So as I opened with, we're at our core a hosting or infrastructure as a service provider. So compute and storage, essentially where you host your application and store your data securely. We have a program that helps companies get to what's called a federal application service, where if you want to run your application compliant in a cloud and sell to government customers, we have a services model built around that. Basic use cases like storage. Where am I storing my data? How am I archiving my data? How am I accessing my data? And this is really the use case I'm going to double click into for today's purposes. But we also, just for broader awareness, we're thought leaders in terms of newer technologies like containers and Kubernetes, specifically Red Hat and HPE Ezmeral container platforms. So if you have an interest in that technology and modernizing your application, we can speak to that and have active customers using us that way. Ransomware and just broadly the threat vector out there against IT is every day it's front page news. Every day we hear about rogue nation states and cyber warfare. Frankly, we've got to protect our IT assets and our data from this, and it's very acute in the state and local government space in terms of that threat. We address that. We also address, maybe an agency or an educational entity isn't interested in taking everything to the cloud. They want to keep some things, what we call on the premises or in their data center. We can provide that for certain elements of our portfolio where we remote manage it. You get the full cloud experience in terms of elastic consumption, paying for what you use when you need it. And you're getting some of the inheritance of the security stack, but you're running it in your data center. That's also very unique and different from, say, competitive offerings on the market. And then lastly, we speak to high performance computing. So again, I like the university example, is where you've got a lab, maybe that lab has government federal funding. They need to crunch petabytes of data. They need to do that in a secure, compliant way. ORock speaks to that. In the interest of time and simplicity, I'm going to just focus on a couple of use cases for cloud storage. Before I do that, I want to just reemphasize, the differentiation of ORock. So, as I said, compliance, it's a big, solid check mark. And there is a recommended framework called StateRAMP that's derived from FedRAMP, which is derived from NIST security controls. So when we talk about compliance, again, it's a big, bold check mark. ORock is a FedRAMP moderate and high ready cloud. We're FISMA compliant, we're HIPAA high-tech compliant, we're PCI DSS compliant. We have privacy shield framework and GCDPR framework. We're also classified as a small business and a diverse business in SWA&M. So we have this piece very squarely covered in terms of those requirements for state, local, higher ed, K through 12 environments. Beyond that, and this is where we start to peel back from our competition and really separate in terms of our differentiation. One of the costs that is not really factored all the time are what we call egress fees. So if you put your data into a cloud, typically a cloud will do that and say, we will not charge you. But if you ever want to take your data out of the cloud, if you want to move your data between tiers of storage, so maybe an archive tier of storage, where you're not accessing the data for months, years, but there could be a point in time where you do, versus moving it up to an active storage category or tier of storage, or your API accessing. Maybe you have a distributed, say, architecture where you need to access that data through an API. All these different use cases, and there's more than the kind of the top three I mentioned there, they all will incur what we call data transaction fees. So you have the fee to get your data out, that's the kind of the physical fee, and then if I want to move as an example, data from an archive tier to an active tier, or maybe I want to do it for resiliency. I want to copy the data from the east to the west coast from a backup or disaster recovery perspective. There's little, I call them toll booths, sitting there waiting for you. ORock, it's one flat fee. It's 1.9 cents per gig per month. We don't charge for you to access your data, move your data, or tier your data. It's the same active directory of storage. That is a considerable differentiation that I will use case here in a moment. We talked about the support. You can see the outline there. I went through that. But when I do a look back on accounts that ORock has won, in many cases, they're AWS takeaways. And why? It's because of the support. It's because of the predictability in our model and the compliance, but it's also because of the support that we've designed into this. And that's not a tagline. We live this every day in terms of our customers that we onboard and bring into our cloud. So let's get a little more specificity around this. So one of the state, local higher ed customers for ORock is a college called Grove City College out of Pennsylvania. They were looking at, how do I back up my Office 365 environment? And they were using Veeam to do that. So Veeam is a backup software package that you can deploy in your data center to back up your email, as an example here. Well, best practice dictates that you do what's called 3-2-1. You have 3 copies of your data, 2 on different media types, and 1 to the cloud. So the different media types could be the tape backup or a second or disk array backup or whatever the case may be, but one of those is cloud. They were backing up to the Amazon cloud. They came to us through a partner called NWN that sits in Pittsburgh and said, listen, we're just not happy with the experience we're having here. I can't get a hold of anybody to support me. Many times my backups or my snapshots of my data are not happening on the frequency or the cadence that we've automated and configured into the Veeam tool. And they just weren't happy. So they came to ORock. We said, let us prove it to you. So we set up a 2-week proof of concept, and they literally rolled in snapshots of their production environment into the ORock cloud. They were very impressed with 3 things. One was the performance. We've built a very high performing cloud here. That's the other thing in terms of price performance. So the snapshots happen faster, in other words. 2, the support from standing up the environment and working with our engineers to understand how they were going to go do this, the roadmap to get there, and then also the support when they had any questions. And 3, when they wanted to repatriate the data back out of the cloud, again, they weren't hit with egress fees or accessing and moving the data. So cost predictability, I have it there in bold print, is a very important aspect to moving anything to the cloud, particularly your data. ORock brings that cost predictability into the model. This is a clear case of a very simplified case, but where you can use us in terms of just that basic email piece of backup. Kind of bridging, federal to state, local, national institutes of health with a partner called Chesapeake Systems. NIH came to ORock about 12 plus months ago, and they had a problem. They didn't want to move to the cloud. That was not their strategic objective. They want to use their high performance compute in their data center, and they work on, operate on in these algorithms and these analytic programs on petabytes of data, large scale data. In fact, one of them, unfortunately, one of the use cases being COVID in terms of analytics that they apply to that data. However, when they take, let's say, chest x-rays or brain scans, they want to archive that because they may not actively analyze that data, immediately in the month or the quarter that they're in. So when they do that, to store that data on-prem is can be very expensive and cost prohibitive. And they don't want to back it up to tape because tape is, If you are backing data up and you'll never touch that data, tape may be the right answer for you. You can make the argument that putting in an ORock cloud is the right answer for you relative price performance. But the point being is they would access this data within the next 3 to 6 months or to a year. And when they did access that data to bring it into a joined set of data to operate analytics on, they didn't want to be charged to get their data repatriated out to their prem to operate on it. So again, 0 egress fees, 0 transaction fees. There was one more piece of this that makes it different than the first use case. In this case, we're talking petabytes of data. So before they would even dip their toe in the water with ORock, they wanted to do a network test, the bit rate of how long would it take to move this amount of data from their environment in their data center to the ORock cloud and then back again. And we not only met, we exceeded their expectations. This is where our investment in our network asset has really helped us differentiate. Now, can you do that with alternative cloud options in the market? Yes, you can, but you've got to engineer it, design it, and price it out and model it. We've integrated all that into our solution, into that per gig per month charge fee. So that is an extreme difference than what you would get. Again, predictable pricing model, the ability to scale at petabyte scale in terms of cloud storage. This is how ORock differentiates with our customers. So some may be saying that that sounds good, but as I opened with, every IT estate agency is kind of a snowflake, and everybody's starting from a different position. And some of these agencies may have already modernized some of their estate. Some of them may already be in the cloud. Some of them are just can't rationalize it yet, and are, there's some apprehension to moving to the cloud. They don't want to make a mistake. And so that trusted advisor in that journey is where we come in. In that thought, we've developed a set of tools to help customers understand what's right for them and right for their IT environment and right for their go-forward strategy. So what you're looking at here is a tool that we can apply on specific engagements that goes out, and for this particular engagement, we're doing a cost compare, or TCO, total cost of ownership, compare between Amazon, Azure, and ORock. We could also look at the customer's environment itself. And what this graph is showing you, and this is a large tool that we have that sits under the covers of this visualization here that we can apply on certain engagements. What this is telling you is the green bar is just, what does it cost me to store my data at rest? Just store the data. The blue bar is, well, what if I want to access that or take that or repatriate that data out? And as you can see on a 50 terabyte example, if I were to egress or take out 10 terabytes over time, that could be as sharp as in one day I do that. Think of NIH, the example I just gave, or that could be over a 6-month time horizon. Regardless, with ORock, on average, you're going to be about a third the cost. You're going to be a fifth the cost when you start, going 3x that 30 terabytes, and it scales from there. So the key takeaway here is we appreciate the fact that you really got to peel it back for the agency and help them realize what their total cost looks like and what it might look like, kind of forecasting what it might look like. Hyperscaler, the tables and the pricing that sits underneath this tool we have is updated quarterly. And then there's literally 50 different knobs of normalization that we introduce into the modeling in terms of whether you're talking, again, deep archiving versus active storage versus high performance storage, all these different variables and all these different fee categories that you would incur in the blue bar, we've factored into this modeling. So we've tried to keep it intuitive and simple in terms of how we think about it. So I wanted to, I told Mike my goal was to keep it light and keep it very relatable and how we think about it. So I'll turn it back to you, Mike. I'm sure there's some questions out there.
Mike, you're on mute.
Sorry about that. There are a couple of questions. I saw one on Q&A, but it looks like it's been pulled back. And Corey answered one on the chat function. But I thought that one, I'm not sure if everyone heard that one. So the question was, what are the regulations pertaining to the location of hosting, domestic versus offshore? I would be hesitant to host deeds and the like in the cloud hosted offshore in India, Russia, etc. Can a customer designate exactly where their stuff will be stored, and where do you store it? Well, what countries are
Great question.
with?
Yeah, so in the federal space, we call that CONUS, continental U.S. versus OCONUS, outside continental U.S. ORock's data centers are in Virginia and California.
Okay.
So that's where we have a roadmap horizon for deployment of a data center in Texas. Then when you come into our experience on our portal, our customer portal, you're able to choose, do I want my data to go to the West Coast or the East Coast, in what they call availability zones. So we do not move any of our data offshore. It's all domestic. We're not even allowed to do that because of, again, the federal FedRAMP customer sets that we have.
This one's for Michelle. How do I make sure I'm getting contract pricing from ORock?
Absolutely, that's easy peasy, as my son would say. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. So just email us or email me. Just email the team govsolve@cinex.com. We'll make sure you are on that and you have the link to that. That's an easy one, no problem.
Okay, we've got one via live chat. Let's see. Oh no, that's just an answer. How do you become an NCPA member? That's easy. Go to ncpa.us. And in the upper right-hand corner, there's a registration button. You click on that. All you need is the stuff that you probably have top of mind, but also your federal tax ID number. Once you sign up with NCPA, you can use not only Cinex and ORock, but all of the 350 or so other contracts that we have. And then lastly, this back to Steve. What does a typical implementation look like end to end?
Oh, absolutely. So I love this question because it's really where we separate. The first piece is we get our customer success manager, Adam Bonifant is his name. He runs our customer success team. And we get onto a call and we do a rationalization of the customer's environment. What are you, like I said earlier, what are you trying to accomplish? What does your IT stack look like? Like what hardware are you running on? What software? What is your goal? Is it performance driven? Is it modernization driven? Is it cost driven? Is it all three of those things? And then we get that conversation going with my direct sales team and our solution architects, as well as our customer success manager. From that, we actually capture a requirements documentation, a technical requirements documentation that our back end engineers go back and rationalize. Now, are there any things that we need to think about in terms of gotchas with deploying this data or this workload or this app into the ORock cloud? And then they bring that back to our front of office, so to speak, sales engineering team and say, did you think about this? So there's a little bit of recursion that happens there. Then, of course, we price out the solution, we discuss that, and then we get into an implementation plan. Once the customer decides push go, we have a kickoff call. Again, Adam runs that, our customer success team, and we get on a call and we think about the timelines, the dependencies, the resources, everything it's going to take to get the customer up and live on service. Then we execute against that plan. Then we're day one live. We're onboarded to ORock, we're live, and then we do check-in calls. There's a check-in process where, again, Adam provides for, where we work with the kind of virtual team that was assigned to this account and drive out, any questions, any support issues, et cetera. And then from an ongoing lifecycle perspective, we've got our domestic support desk that sits in Reston. And again, that's going to get you a live voice and provide for, quick, efficient how-to and break-fix questions that may be there, and just general support for the customer. Lastly, we've deployed what we call ORock Central. ORock Central is your portal to your ORock experience. You can get how much did I spend in the last month, in the last quarter. What am I projected to spend? I want to spin up new services. I want to reach out to, it's nice that I can call ORock's help desk, but I want to submit an online ticket. I don't want to call anybody. I just want to submit a ticket and an automated response. We've got that online trouble ticketing. Also, how do I look at my usage over geographies and how I manage my environment from a system administration perspective? All of that is available and exposed to the end customer and experienced on ORock Central. So that's the 360-degree view in terms of going from A to Z in terms of rationalizing to onboarding and support.
So we got one more question. We'd like to use VMC, VMware Cloud. Is VMC available in ORock?
We are an open stack, government hardened open stack cloud. There is, and with that, we get flexibility. VMware virtualized or VMware based VMs are supported to OpenStack, but we consider it custom. There is a migration tool that we can implement to take someone from VMware to OpenStack, but we do not natively support VMware. It's an OpenStack environment.
Okay. Well, that's all the questions I see. I want to thank everybody from ORock and Cinex for joining us today. And with this, what I found was tremendously informative. And I look forward to seeing you all at our next webinar. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good day.